welcome to Manti's Book Club. Today we continue reading through Profession Witch. If you are watching this on Twitch, you can find previous episodes on my YouTube channel, acidmanticore. The recording of this episode will be uploaded to my YouTube channel tomorrow or day after, day after. So if this is the first stream that you see, you can safely pause it and go listen to the beginning of the book on my YouTube. Or you can continue listening to this one. Today we are starting with chapter 18. The horses walked at a leisurely trot for a good half of the way. If Leon had not been with me, I would have long ago gotten lost in a remote spruce thicket, where raspberries bloomed wildly, and protective stripes of nettles and blackberries inspired awe even in the elves. The hazel closed its flexible twigs over the narrow forest path, and the velvet leaves tickled the top of my head. But then the trees parted, juniper and willow bushes appeared, and behind them a field with a windmill flapping its wings. "Look how beautiful it is," Leon nodded towards the bright red clearing at the very edge of the forest, somehow missed by the berry pickers. Ripe strawberries fearlessly peeked out from under the leaves, showing off in the sun. I didn't like strawberries, but I couldn't resist. I dismounted and squatted down at the edge of the clearing and carefully parted the leaves. Large berries rolled into the palm on their own as soon as I ran my hand along the greenish-gray stem. It seemed to me that it was sighing with relief, getting rid of a heavy burden. I put berries in handfuls, enjoying the process of collecting them. Like a fisherman who sits for hours with a fishing rod on a hillock next to an overgrown pond in which there have long been no fish. At home, when I had a home, I didn't get out of the forest for days picking strawberries. I immediately remember the smell of pockets with strawberries standing in the cold, damp entryway. I sat on the threshold and guarded the berries from my gourmet brothers until my parents returned from the field. I wanted them to see the fragrant wealth untouched, fully appreciating my work. Then I would take off guard at the entrance, but still didn't eat strawberries, even with cream. I still can't stand them. I'll give them to Leon, I decided. I felt that Leon was looking at me, so thoughtfully, appraisingly, attentively. I raised my head. He really was looking. He didn't have a single berry in his hands. We stared at each other like a man and a bear that are collided in a raspberry patch. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." The bear, that is, the vampire, taken by surprise, was embarrassed. "You have a leaf in your hair." "Really?" I shook my head. "It's stuck. Let me pull it out." I lowered my head, continuing to watch the vampire from under my overgrown bangs. Fingers carefully touched the top of my head and ran along the back of my head. After several unsuccessful attempts, Leon unceremoniously pulled my head to his chest and excitedly fussed with my hair. "Leon, what are you doing there?" I became worried, breathing hotly into his shirt. The collected berries crumbled in a convulsively clenched handful. "It's running away," Leon apologized. "Leaf?" "No, berry bug." "Berry bug? Get it out now!" I squealed, resting my free palm on the vampire's chest. "Quiet, don't move, you will scare it away." I felt the pursued bug move its paws, completing competing in dexterity with the fingers of a vampire. The feeling was not pleasant. "Don't move around, or I'll crush it." I froze, wondering what was better, a live bug on my head or a squashed one. Screams always come at the wrong time. Moreover, this is the privilege of unpleasant shouts like fire, drowning, murder. This time our ears were delighted by an eerie scream, unformulated into words, terrible and pulsating, then dying down, then resuming with renewed vigor. I jumped up from my knees, dropping the berries, and a thorny barberry branch hit me on the cheek, scratching me until I bled. Chamomile restlessly moved her ears, flaring her nostrils. I used to jump on her dashingly, with a running start from any side, in this case from the back. With a larger and more restive horse this trick would not have worked, but Chamomile had long been accustomed to her mistress falling onto her back from anywhere, and did not shy away. Taking a running start before the jump, I placed emphasis on the saddle and soared like a bird over Chamomile's rump. And then this bastard grabbed my leg. Not just grabbed, but pulled roughly and unceremoniously. With one hand I continued to hold onto the saddle, the other slipped, instinctively grabbing Chamomile's tail. "Where are you going?" "There!" "For what?" "Because!" I kicked Leon with my free leg. Chamomile, offended to the core, added with her hoofs, kicking her butt like a restive donkey. I unclenched my hands, but Leon did not. As a result, I hovered in the air for a split second and fell face down. May I rest in peace. "Are you crazy?" I screamed, twisting my head and spitting. The Mother Earth was not to my taste. Leon finally let go of my leg, and falling onto my stomach, I saw far, far away in the field white and black dots, our running horses. Chamomile's tail, praise the gods, remained with Chamomile, at least the tip. The entire clearing was strewn with white silky horsehair. "They'll figure it out without you," the vampire exhaled hoarsely, falling to his knees. On his chest, on the left and right, 2 horseshoes were imprinted, and a little lower, a sole. Oh, lords, we probably broke all his ribs. But he's holding on, not a single groan. No matter how fast the regeneration proceeds, Leon must experience extreme pain in the first moments. And all for my safety, which was not in danger. "Did you notice where the horses ran?" I asked more peacefully. "In the direction where they were shouting from. So they decided it was safe there." It's unlikely that Chamomile was going to fight a werewolf with a sword strapped to the saddle. Leon finally took a breath and looked incredulously in the indicated direction. In 2 flights of an arrow, the horses stopped and seemed to be nibbling the grass at the foot of a low but long hill, overgrown with wild willow herb. "Come on," I quietly pulled Leon by the shoulder. "We need to catch them." "I'll go myself." "Yeah? And you will leave me alone, without weapons and means of transportation?" I suggested insidiously. The vampire just sighed, rising heavily to his feet. We were not at a loss for long. Just over the hill I saw a lopsided cart, and its owner wringing his hands over piles of white dust that smoked in the wind. He told us a heartbreaking story. On the way down the hill, the rear left wheel suddenly jumped off the axle and modestly retreated into the bushes. The cart, loaded with 10 sacks of flour, 2 girls 3 and 10 years old, a canvas bag with a couple of suckling pigs, and a jar of homemade sour cream, tilted dangerously, and part of the property spilled onto the road, with an unimaginable vocal accompaniment that disturbed Lon and I's peace. The horse, a sly-faced cowtail, was nibbling the grass as far as the right shaft would allow. A piece of the left one fell out of the belt loop and was laying on the ground. A bag of squealing piglets jumped along the road. The girls looked like sugar figures on a wedding cake. Sour cream spread like glaze. To top off all the troubles, the owner of the above-mentioned property suffered from a nervous attack of radiculitis, and he froze, groaning, unnaturally straightened, like a monument to himself. It was clear that we couldn't get any help from him. I spent the rest of my magic reserve on the shaft, merging the split ends. While Leon was crawling under the cart and inspecting the axle, I ran into the bushes and broke the wheel. Is it whole? Well, 2 hubs are missing. They've been missing for a long time, said the older girl, trying to break the resurrected shaft. Get out of here, Leon commanded, crawling out from under the cart. I'll lift it now, and you'll put it on. Maybe we can unload it first? I suggested, critically examining the pile of 3-pound bags that were still on the cart. The highlighted sides helped. This will do. And he lifted the cart, holding the corner, without any effort, calmly. And he kept holding it like that for about 20 minutes, until I, not knowing anything about cart repairs, put the wheel on the wrong side, put the wheel on the wrong side, then again the wrong side. Since then, I am sure that the wheels do not have 2 sides, but at least 4, and there are 5 bushings in total. The bottom was cracking. I was always afraid that it would break and bury me under an avalanche of wheat flour. But it all worked out. Leon smoothly lowered the cart, the girls quickly climbed onto the sacks, the owner burst into expressions of gratitude and picked up the reins, instantly cured of the harmful but very convenient radiculitis. I don't understand anything at all, I said when the cart had moved a sufficient distance away. What does radiculitis have to do with it? And teeth? You regenerate instantly. What diseases could you possibly have? Don't generalize. After 300 years, the ability to recover disappears. And then, I am not quite an ordinary vampire. Leon whistled. The black stallion reluctantly but obediently approached and allowed himself to be caught. It was my turn. Chamomile, oh chamomile, I cooed flutteringly. The horse stamped her foot and snorted. Kosia, Kosia, Kosia. I continued to persuade, approaching the horse with a bunch of extremely unappetizing grass. Chamomile backed away, not taking her eyes off me. Why are you laughing? It was you who scared her. Well, maybe I also put the tail in your hand? Why did you bother at all? I protected you. Leon, are you out of your mind? It's me who should protect you. This is what I came for. Well, sorry, I forgot. He waved it off carelessly. Forgot? I was seriously angry. You? You don't forget anything, you high-ranking intriguer. Why the hell are you running around with me like I'm a rotten egg in your pocket? Well said, the vampire laughed good naturedly, and most importantly, to the point. Don't go off topic. Come on, guardian, guardian my ass. That's it, from now on I will begin my own search. I don't really know what or where to look for, but you definitely can make and it definitely won't work out with you. As you wish, the vampire shrugged. When you get hungry for my company, contact me. But for real, who is protecting whom? A 10-year-old vampire will lay an adult man on both shoulder blades, and alone can tie my sword in a knot. Can a werewolf then be considered a serious threat to vampires? And if so, then what is the use of a half-educated magician? Something is fishy here. Someone pushed me in the left side. I turned around. Chamomile, seizing the moment, approached the cracker in my pocket, pretty much chewing on my jacket. Gotcha, you toadstool! I grabbed the halter with a death grip. I hear it from a toadstool, the horse snorted, hotly poking her muzzle into my palm. Having made peace along the way, we quickly got bored of riding silently side by side, casting reproachful glances at each other from under our brows. We sat on the edge of the fountain, and I quietly stroked the rippling water, replenishing the reserve. Raise your head, Leon unexpectedly asked. I looked at him sullenly, still upset. Your scratch is glowing, the vampire added in surprise. Here! I ran my hand over my forehead. It hurt. There was a thin brown stripe left on the index finger. Nonsense. Memo from Barbary. Has it gone out? Yes. What was it? I restored my reserve and continued to keep my head in the water. Energy itself is like water, it fills holes and depressions, and at the sight of any wound, its level drops significantly. So the energy rushes there like a stream into a ravine. But the wound never healed. Of course, not every magister can heal himself. You see, this is someone else's energy. This is foreign energy. Body rejects it like someone else's flesh, and I still don't know how to transform it. The wound glows because the energy, not being absorbed, seeks a way out and finds it, wasting itself on the glow. So you can cope with even a tiny scratch? Leon clarified in surprise. What about your dental practice? Well, it is much easier to heal others. The most professional barber uses the services of his colleagues. It's okay, I'll learn over time. But save a place under the aspen tree just in case. I thoughtfully licked my bloody finger. Tasty? The vampire asked calmly. Yeah, help yourself. Leon? I remembered one very unpleasant thing and could not resist a disgusted grimace. Leon? Berry bug! I buried myself in his chest. Yep, it is still here. Leon casually tossed the hair. And it looks happy. I am not a berry bug charity worker. Get it out. This time he hunted more prudently and ran the bug to exhaustion when it jumped out of desperation near my left ear. Here, take it as a souvenir. Grabbed by the back, the bug moved its paws in puzzlement. Keep it. Put it in a jar and keep it behind the icons. I ran my hand through the tousled hair that remembered the movements of his fingers and the bug's legs. I'll probably go to sleep for an hour or two. It turned out to be a very restless day. I wish night will not let us down. Chapter 19. I woke up and was laying on my back for a long time with my eyes open. The room was dark to the point of complete blindness. I couldn't shake the strange feeling that the bed jumped, and the shock which shook my whole body served as a wake-up call. The muscles trembled, small and unnaturally, as if they had just been released by a cramp. The unpleasant sensations gradually smoothed out, but the anxiety did not go away. Something was wrong. Something has changed. Something triggered it. The chest of drawers was silent. The tapestry did not sneak up on me, opening its fringe. There was no one else in the house, and Krina was breathing as evenly as if she was really sleeping. Just in case, I sent a wandering search impulse around the room, and it poked into my palm unchanged, without encountering a single living creature that had anything against me. Despite the ideal that reigned around, my anxiety intensified. My dream was no less frightened. It ran without looking back, and I couldn't find it in either eye. To diffuse the situation, I quietly spoke out loud. Sometimes this helps. After reading myself a boring lecture about superstitions, I made myself laugh with an old joke, patted myself, my beloved, on the head, and was just about to sing myself a lullaby when I realized what I was missing for complete happiness. Wolf lullaby. The wolves were silent. I was awakened by the sudden break of a note. The silence pushed me. I sat up in bed, clutching the edge of the blanket, and I heard a faint scratching on the door. And then silence. I threw back the blanket and slowly lowered my feet to the floor. I stood up and tiptoed to the door. I repeated the spell in my mind, got confused, was scared to death, and for a long time could not remember the very beginning. And then, as silently as possible, I pulled the handle towards myself, and an animal's snout, furry and fanged, stuck through the gap. From surprise, I froze for a split second. Otherwise, the wolf would have come to an end. I would have incinerated him. It was our wolf. I recognized him by his torn ear and a wide, bald spot scar above his left eyebrow. The wolf persistently squeezed into the gap, scratching with his paws and quietly whining in horror. I compliantly released the handle, and he slid past me, tickling my bare legs with warm fur. He huddled under the table, the fur standing up on his hunched neck. The eyes glowed like two transparent embers. I didn't dare to pet him. Just threw the jacket over my long nightgown and went out into the yard. The slender newborn moon practiced illuminating the silent earth. She didn't do it very well, but it was beautiful and mysterious anyway. But there was no trace of that ringing silence that struck me before. I listened and discerned a quiet, murmurous laughter, the subtle crystal clink of glasses breaking for good luck, the plaintive whistle of an oriole, the rustling of rain on wet leaves, and light, girlish steps along the sand, bathed in moonlight. I shouldn't have listened. This noise could not be divided into familiar sounds, just as melody could not be divided into individual notes. Otherwise, you won't hear the melody itself. The fountain hummed it. The moon admired its flickering reflection, and the fountain plucked its rays like the strings of a harp. Starlight soaked the drops, and, picked up by the western wind, broke onto the granite pavement, where a large puddle formed. I felt chilly and shrugged my shoulders and turned away. And I saw two luminous points. Bulging eyes in the bushes always evoked unhealthy associations in me, and these ones, moreover, didn't blink, and the narrow lines of the pupils seemed like dirty cracks in the rubies of the round irises. Needless to say, the honor of the above-mentioned eyes did not cause me much delight, nor a desire to get to know them better. Glasses like this filled the dry eye sockets of a stuffed werewolf in the Museum of Unnatural History. The eyes rarely come just in pairs. They are usually equipped with 100 teeth, a dozen claws, and a digestive tract, exactly in this order. I didn't move. Running away from a werewolf is pointless, going towards it even more so, and a step to the left or right will not change anything. Therefore, I remained standing, given the right of first move to the big-eyed stranger. Without waiting for me under the bush, it silently and deceptively slowly walked out into the pavement. It was 6 cubits in length and 3 at the withers. The paws were thin, flexible, without clearly defined joints. There was a shaggy fur collar on the neck. The muzzle was implausibly elongated, flattened. The nose was without a lobe, the nostrils were sunk into the fur, and the inactive pointed ears were pressed to the sides of the head. He looked like, and at the same time did not look like, a werewolf. Something was bothering me. I could not attribute it to a specific species. As we know, there are 6 of them. It was as if an inexperienced artist had been commissioned to depict a werewolf and painted it guided by one consideration. The naughty children who would be frightened by this painting should begin to cry before the curtain was pulled back. The creepy appearance and impressive size of the creature finally convinced me of its unreality. Phantom? Illusion? Who could have created it? No, illusion could not have killed 13 people, unless the unfortunate ones died of a heart attack. The creature growled quietly. Illusions do not do that. A disgusting sound that penetrates to the very liver. I didn't have a sword, and thank gods, otherwise I would have dropped it on my leg. I had almost convinced myself that the werewolf wasn't real, and the growl took me by surprise. In addition to the coarse work, I wish I could bring a stuffed animal of a new type of undead to the school. How would it be to how could I finish it off in order to keep the skin intact? Let's say I succeed. What's next? Rip off the hide? Salt it in a barrel and boil the bones? Will the hair not come out from the salt? Maybe I should make it here in the Gava? I need to ask Leon if he has an experienced taxidermist in mind. Or I can donate only the skeleton to the museum and sue a parka and the coat from the ski. A parka for every day and a coat for going out. Now I looked at the unskinned hide of an unkilled werewolf as at my personal property. It seemed that all one had to do was come up and take it. The fact that the werewolf might not like this somehow never occurred to me. Without wasting any warnings, it rushed at me with the mouth open. Forgetting about private thoughts, I generated a heat charge of such power that the werewolf should have been incinerated on the spot along with Parker and the coat. A werewolf can be killed in three ways: with a silver blade, an aspen stake, theoretically, no one has ever dared to attack a wolf with a sharpened piece of wood, and fire. A roaring cloud of flame rushed towards the monster and burned the young oak tree. The Parker coat deftly dodged the dark mass sword in a long leap, and I again made an unforgivable mistake. I fired a spell straight into the gaping mouth. Fire is designed to hit at a distance, and using it within an elbow of yourself is pure madness. It was as if I saw with my own eyes a huge burning skeleton falling on my head, and the werewolf howled in an inhuman, which is quite natural, voice. I fell to the ground, thrown by the hot air. Everything was clouded with white steam. Hundreds of thorns stuck into my face and hands, and something wet and hot began to flow onto my clothes, as if I had poured a pot of boiling water over myself. I don't know whether the vampires slept soundly that night, but my scream, capable of awakening the dead, made them run to the square within 30 seconds. My face and hands were burning. I was afraid to open my eyes, but when I heard Leon's alarmed voice, I immediately stopped screaming and cursed loudly. It was too late and absurd to pass off the cry as a cry of victory, but I think that Leon the Dragon Slayer himself would not have disdained its execution. If the hero screams, then it must be a unique, incomparable sound. It was definitely a success for me, but applause and sounds of encore did not follow. An oppressive silence reigned. Leon lightly felt my face with his fingertips. "Is it bad?" I squeezed out, trying to prevent an encore. "Will you miss it very much?" "What?" "Nose." "What?" I forced my eyelids open and squinted. To my great relief, if not the entire olfactory organ, then at least the final part of it dimly loomed within sight. "Vision is not affected," Leon noted, continuing to study my face. "Looks like a burn." "What do you mean it looks like? Do not scare me. Is it really a burn? Is it bad?" "No, just an unnatural blush from bangs to chin." "Are there any blisters?" "Not yet," he said thoughtfully. "They do not appear right away." "Oh, thank you. You can always console me." I stood up, brushing myself off. The clothes were wet and hot. Why did you go out at night alone?" "What? Should I wake you up every time?" "Oh, I have nothing against it." Leon was not inclined to joke. "Let's go inside. Kelly will examine you when people find her. And you, disperse." Someone expressed a desire to honor me as a heroine savior, but I just annoyingly waved it off. "It didn't work out?" Leon asked quietly. I shook my head. There was no material evidence of my victory, that is, a corpse, even in poor condition, lying anywhere. The crowd dispersed with the dissatisfied grumbling. Leon, stop! I screamed after the vampire who had risen. Is it possible to go out not alone? What did you mean by this? Which one of you keeps me company on night hikes? You yourself? Your white beast? Or maybe the elders is sneaking after me to a low booth in the backyard? Vodka, please don't start. The vampire sighed tiredly, not risking looking into my eyes. Did you assign a permanent watchman to me? And did they oversleep today? While you are visiting me, I am responsible for you, he said angrily. You, you such a... I wanted to say scoundrel, but I realized that setting fire... that shitting the Lord in front of a dozen subjects was highly unethical. Therefore, I limited myself to thinking loudly, and poor Leon could not stand it. He exhaled sharply and waving his hand, which equally likely meant, well, leshy with you or we will talk later, the Lord quickly walked away into the darkness, angrily waving his outstretched wings. Someone offered to take me home, but I refused. I created a bright pulsar and explored the area step by step, trying to reconstruct the picture of what happened. I found two chains of traces, wet spots size of a plate. One led from the fountain, the second to it. I tracked the werewolf to the bushes. No, the tracks did not stop there, they just got lost in the thick grass. Even the bright light of a pulsar didn't help. I was interested in one seemingly insignificant detail. The creature wet its paws even before it crossed the puddle by the fountain. I ran my hand across the grass. The dew was just beginning to fall, the cold stems did not have time to become dripping. A firefly, burning with stupid fashion, hovered around the pulsar. I stared thoughtfully at and at its dancing shadow. I wonder, where did the beast got itself wet? Is there any lake, stream, or puddle nearby? Or maybe the blood of a previous victim remained on the paws? No. The blood dries and produces brown spots. I tried to think logically. From the bushes to the fountain there are 100 to 150 feet. Specifically 140, I was convinced, measuring the distance to the pool with steps. Come on, let's conduct an investigative experiment. The soles of the boots are leather. If they are thoroughly moistened, they will keep their mark for a long time. 1, 2... On the 7th step, I went dry. This means that the puddles can be discarded altogether. The creature had to soak not only its pads, but also its fur, so that the water flowing down it would continuously moisten its paws. Where could it get so wet? I didn't... it couldn't sweat, right? A grey shadow with yellow eyes silently emerged from the darkness and froze at arm's length. Oh, let she take you, I cursed. The wolf flattened his ears ingratiatingly, allowing himself to be caught by the scruff of his neck. You scared me again. That's it, my dear, serve the good of the science. When I threw the wolf into the fountain, he desperately flapped his paws, although he could easily have been standing at the bottom, holding his head above the water. I jumped back, the wolf jumped over the side and ran towards the house. Where the wolf's paws first touched the ground, a solid puddle flowed from which a chain of chaotic spots and traces stretched. The tracks soon ended, stains didn't. The wind brought Krina's indignant cry. It seems that the wolf decided to look for sympathy on her blanket. It was strange. To leave such traces, the creature had to be a sponge. Soft, wet, and porous. And it washed my neck really well. I came across Kella quite by accident when, without waiting for her, I sleepily wandered home, flatly refusing to spend the night in the meeting house under Lon's supervision. We went to my temporary home, and there, drain, amid the ohs and ahs of the frightened host, Kella made me take off my boots and jacket and lie down on the bed. Nice burn, she said admiringly, feeling my swollen raw eyelids with cold fingers. Simply excellent. I clenched my teeth in martyrdom. The Gavas herbalists belonged to a select category of healers who perceive patients only as walking shells of sweet, glorious illnessness. After checking both eyes, the herbalist chuckled with satisfaction and reached into her bag. It smelled like herbs. Blinking hard, I propped myself up on my elbow and took one of the black-capped bottles that Kella had placed on the stool. From laboratory studies, I knew that the darker the glass, the greater the nastiness that can float inside. Let's say a dead spider or a dead man's fingernail. Last year, we practitioners were taught a course in herbal science with the basics of pharmacology, and I was familiar with the recipes for basic potions. Of course, I am far from being a herbalist. It is not for nothing that they are trained in a separate department, focusing on the diagnosis and treatment of diseases to the detriment of combat magic. Kella soaked a lint swab in the potion, and an acrid smell spread through the room, making me want to sneeze. An alcoholic tincture of some herbs and seemingly rotten apples. Mixed with green mold, right? You guessed it. Lie on your back and close your eyes. What's with the monster? Herbalist asked busily, as if I was not going out to a mortal combat but to the market for carrots. I would say that it evaporated. What? Yeah, it released something like a cloud of steam and disappeared. Maybe it was a dragon, Kella suggested insinuatingly. Have you ever seen it? No, but learned twice. And who did not catch up with whom? Kella remained silent, deftly using the tampon. I have never seen such a gloomy girl in my life. And yet, with amazing stubbornness, you keep inviting practicing magicians to the gala. Maybe you're hoping that the werewolf will eat them and save you for later? We didn't invite anyone, Kella said with annoyance. As soon as the magician from Kamnidержets, died, you flocked to the corpse like crows. Like, oh, we need to find out who he really, was killed by. You were hanging around here, sniffed, looked for, asked questions, but didn't even, almost looked into our mouths. One gets devoured, the other gets sent here. And just, how can we not let you in? How? How dare you? Are vampires hiding something from us? Leon, he's patient. I would not be so nice to you. Don't be offended, little one, but your help only causes problems. Close your eyes. Leave the compress on your eyelids overnight, otherwise they will swell. And take my advice. Leave before it's too late. There is nothing for you to do here, and you won't be able to do anything. Leon doesn't think so. Ha! Kella started laughing for the first time. Leon? Whatever Leon thinks, he thinks to himself. And do not take his smile for permission to put your finger in his mouth. He will bite it off along with your hand. Our Lord, very much of an intriguer. Diplomat, I corrected. A euphonious synonym, the herbalist grimaced. This will someone destroy him. Leon was orphaned at birth. Until the age of 5 he was weak and sickly. We fussed with him, babysat him, indulged him in everything, just almost prey on him. So now he considers himself a great arbiter of destinies, as if he's waiting for someone to click him on a nose. You are not among the top 10 loyal subjects. It is hard to explain. Kella's face softened, but the annoyed wrinkle between her eyebrows did not smooth out. Sometimes it seems to me that he considers us all weak-minded cripples who need to be pitied and protected but not necessarily respected. And this is so humiliating. I am discussing some problem with him and suddenly I notice that he is looking through me, which means that he has already decided everything himself without taking into account my arguments. He of course will listen, not with a smart look, but will act in his own way. And I and you feel like a complete idiot. This feeling hasn't left me since my arrival, I laughed. But it seems Leon and I got along well. I told you, close your eyes. You didn't warn me that this thing burns. I don't know if it is possible to get along with him at all. Leon's soul is like a grave, designed for him alone. By the way, how did you manage to get him out on good night? He never celebrates it. Really? I felt a sort of some pride. Yeah, he is allergic to fern. Is that so? My nose tickled from laughing. He skillfully hid it behind a sneeze. You two are similar in some ways. Really? Yeah, he is just as eccentric. Yeah, what can you get from him? And how old are you? People don't live that long, Kella joked. Okay, that's it. I hope you will give up your nightly forays. Oh, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Chapter 20. The next morning, as soon as the robins burst into thrills of gratitude in honor of the fine day, I jumped out of bed and, hastily making sure in the mirror that my skin was not peeling and my nose was in place, I ran at a sports jog to the Lord's mansion. As usual, no guards around, not a soul on the street at all. Leon was still basking in the dawn, half asleep, but I burst into his room so disheveled and excited that he did not show the slightest resistance while I pulled the blanket off him. Having brought the vampire to a more or less awake and conscious state, I demanded the map of the Gavin. He gave it to me without asking. Sitting comfortably on the edge of the vast bed, I delved into a white sheet of birch bark, dotted with unfamiliar runes. Pointing my finger at the center of the map, I, as expected, discovered a fountain underneath it. All that remains is to navigate the cardinal directions. Leon remained tactfully silent while I turned the map this way and that, muttering inaudibly under my breath. Yep, there you go. Outside the city, paved roads give way to regular ones, dividing together into 4 equal sectors. What is this? Why are the sectors different in color? One of them is allocated for agriculture. The third is for cattle breeding. They are interspersed with the second and fourth, virgin meadows and young forest plantations on the side of the forests burned during the war. Leon explained patiently. There is another forest zone, the border. It's approximately a third of the sector along the outer edge. Okay, moving on. Is the Gava itself a continuous urban forest? No, there are clearings and lakes and pastures for horses. But mostly the forest, about two-thirds. That's what I wanted to know. Let's discard agriculture and sacred places. If I want to cross the city on the main road, how long will it take? On foot and at walk, about an hour and a half. And what about through the forest? I don't know, depends on how you go. Let's say 3 days. I unclenched my fist and poured a handful of unripe cherries plucked along the way onto the bed. Where did the first attack take place? Leon thought and put one cherry 3 fingers away from the fountain. Okay, and the next? I eyeballed the center of the cherry scattering. The greatest likelihood of encountering the creature is in the southern sector, 1,000 feet away from the fountain. But it can come from anywhere, Don objected. The speed with which it runs can take it even from the outer border. Leon, you know everything about vampires, but when it comes to werewolves, rely on me. This is a fierce predator. Look at the map. Let's say it comes from the border. Let's say its lair is nearby. Why does it kill? Because it's hungry. Draw a straight line from any point on the outer border to the fountain. It will definitely go through someone's house. Why would a fierce creature driven forward by a frantic thirst for blood run to the city center to get around? Yeah, it will encounter more suitable prey hundreds of times. Maybe it is looking for a specific prey. Werewolf? Bullshit. Believe me, a werewolf will attack the first person it meets. Get drunk on blood and fall into a lair. It is here in the Gala. It can't be, Leon said decisively. I know every single vampire in the area. Oh, the conclusion is obvious. This is not a vampire. This is a stranger. Possibly a human. A human? And a stranger at that? Leon frowned in disbelief. It's even more impossible. As soon as a human crosses the border, the guard will spot him within a mile. Not even the guard. When you walk down the street, any vampire sorting through potatoes in the cellar not only notices and recognizes you, but also determines where you're going and at what mood. You said that no one except you has telepathy. This is completely different from reading minds. Literally. Using vision, you can obtain information about the appearance of your interlocutor. Vampires access his emotional state in much the same way. For us, you are an open book, Volga. We have senses that you don't even know exist. And if someone gets wind on it, like if someone learns what do these organs of yours react to, can they deceive them? I don't know. Leon became noticeably alarmed for the first time. So far, no one has succeeded. So far, werewolves didn't eat you in the broad daylight. I noted, rolling up the map into a pipe. It does not attack during the day, Leon corrected mechanically. Well, at night. Are you sure you didn't kill it? 100%. But I saw it disappear. It means nothing. It could become invisible. So, this is a werewolf mage. Yeah, turns out so. I confirmed confusedly, scratching the top of my head. Do you still want to stay? After a pause, the vampire asked. Now more than ever. Leon? Yes? You knew about the creature. You knew that it came out at night and gnawed at the inhabitants, but nevertheless you organized a good night when even small children wandered through the forest unattended. How could you forget about this? How could you have fun knowing that somewhere in the darkness there was a predatory thing lurking, ready to strike? Because the only creature that this werewolf could attack was you. Me? Wait, I don't understand. There were 13 victims. 4 sorcerers and 9 locals. Considering that the werewolf ate vampires exclusively in the absence of fish, that is, without mages, he liked sorcerers. But it means nothing. They hunted it, lured it, irritated it with spells. There was probably an element of self-defense in the attacks. Olga, it didn't touch a single vampire. But you said 2 women and a child. I was completely confused. All the victims were humans. Did you lie to me? You? No. I answered the question the way you asked it. Yes, they were ours. Ones of us. They lived in the Geva on their own free will. Both women had vampire husbands and a half-blood child, the son of a human vampire. You should have told me right away. So what? You thought you could think that vampires deliberately lure people to the Geva and kill them? How's it, according to your mythology? Bite their necks, suck out blood, zombify. Oh, have you got a creature that lives in the center of the Geva but only attacks humans? Where is it itself, may I ask? Show off your product. Oh, is it shy? Well, we'll be smarter. We'll come and visit yourself. Just grab some holy water, spades and silver arrows. And the stakes can be made out on the side. You know, you have tons of husbands in the Geva. Leon, don't yell at me, I begged. He closed his eyes and froze, catching his breath and trying to calm down. Sorry. I'll kill it, I promise. But now your theory is crumbling. A werewolf could nest anywhere, since vampires are not part of its diet. Are there any other humans in the Geva? 20 or 30, and about 50 descendants from mixed marriages. Out of the city? Yes. My theory is strong as... well, thank God it's not as strong as my sword. If the creature had nested on the border, it would have started from the border. And I, bycatch, will start with the fountain. It's easy to say I'll start. I felt like a hard farmhand who was solemnly handed a rusty hoe and pointed with a regal gesture towards 40 acres of rocky virgin land. Unlike the farmhand, I had in my hands a willow stick like those with which people search for underground springs, only specially charmed for the undead. I had to go around the Geva in an unwinding spiral without letting go of the stick from my hands, and the radius of action of the search device was 4 feet. All this under the scorching sun, the surprised glances of vampires, and the dissatisfied glances of fools. It was impossible to miss a bump or a stump. If there was a house on the way, I would go in and conscientiously checked the niches under the beds, waved the stick over the babies in their cradles, and, with a shudder of heart, go down into the cold, damp cellars. I trampled flowers in flower beds and trampled underfoot on rooftops, nearly dove into a well while leaning belly over a frame, crushed a grey warbler's nest, crushed the neatly trimmed hedges around the meeting house, and fell screaming into a garbage pit in the backyard. By lunchtime, the children were playing me. The girl took a twig, blindfolded herself, and walked round the fountain, and the boys sneaked up behind her and pulled her braid, pretending to be werewolves. If the girl managed to turn around and hit the mischievous kid with a twig, he was considered eliminated, fell, and remained lying like dead, sometimes, however, raising his head and calling for revenge on his more successful comrades. It was not allowed to run after the werewolves. If a girl was pulled with impunity by 3 werewolves in a row, she was eliminated from the game and her place was taken by the last trickster. When the sun rested on the top of the tallest spruce, Lon came and stood so that at the next round I stuck the rod in his chest. "What do you need from me, elder?" I asked ironically, trying to go round him to the left. A quickly spread wing blocked my path. "Well, maybe you can take a break for a couple of minutes." "For what?" "Well, I've decided to drop the garden. Can you stand on guard?" "What?" I asked with a puzzled laugh. "I want some apples," Elon repeated calmly. "It's not a season yet. The apples aren't ripe," I said mockingly. "Yeah, unripe but juicy." Something pulled me towards something sour. "You are the Lord, Leon. Go ask the gardener." "No, Wolfe, you are not a romantic. Come on, they'll give me some apples, washed, cleaned, on a plate, after lunch." The Lord's grey eyes danced with amusement, and his sigh did not come out very sad. Nah, I will never understand him. For a 73-year-old lord to rob apple orchards like a mischievous boy, and even with a serious look incite youngsters to do his dirty deed, I probably should have refused indignantly, pretending to be a prim lady who had not been attracted to extravagant youthful antics for a long time. But I really wanted sour apples. To imagine a map of the Gava roads, you need to lock a large ball of wool and a mischievous kitten in a room. When the victorious meowing stops coming from the room, you can open the door and admire the results. Apart from the pavements, there is not a single straight road. Only narrow winding paths intersecting 100 times. Very, by the way, well trodden. Not a single one will break off and become overgrown with grass. It seems that the elders annually appoint responsible tramplers who are obliged to run back and forth along the path for an hour a day so that they do not disappear. And, of course, the draft effect with dizzying speed changing the surrounding landscape. A second ago we were listening to the darkness and dampness of the spruce forest, and now the feather grass is waving its narrow leaves in the sunlit meadow. Another step, and as if by the wave of an eye, tall trees grow around us. "Are these apple trees?" I was surprised, running my hand along the wrinkled trunk. I confess, at first glance I mistook them for oaks. The branches, like a hog as thick, begin 4 feet from the ground. The ground is vertically flattened, like a cucumber on a fork. And that's it. How would we get it, huh? Shake it, Leon suggested. Well, unless I take a running start. I imagined myself sliding down the trunk with a halo of stars circling around my head. You first. Hmm. Maybe we can make do with the ones that already fallen. I rummaged in the grass and found one fallen apple. It was green, exquisitely lumpy, with a grand opening for a worm and the size of a cavity in a wisdom tooth. I showed an apple to Leon and he immediately lost interest. Well, I guess we'll have to climb, he said with some apprehension, sizing up the lower branch. Do you need a lift? No thanks. He jumped, grabbed the branch, swung, and deftly ran up the trunk with his feet. Twisting around, he sat on the branch and took a noisy breath. There was a menacing crunch in the belly of the tree. Climb higher, I commanded, covering my eyes with my hand. Crumbs of bark and dried lichen dusted my face. Leon looked around. He sat with his back to the trunk. Oh, you need to plan the operation more carefully, more carefully. Don't tell me I have a fear of heights, I scoffed, taking my time to join him. No, what are you talking about? I just remembered my great duty to the Gavas people. With these words, he stood up and, balancing his wings, slowly turned around. It will be very sad if they suddenly lose their only lord. Come on, climb! He chuckled and began to climb up, rustling the leaves. Bark and wormy apples rained down on me. Where did you put that first fallen one? I threw it away. Oh, in vain. These are not like it's not just eaten. You can't even bite them. Judging by the muffled exclamation, Leon tried to bite the desired fruit but did not succeed. I touched the trunk and thoughtfully stroked it with my palm. The apple tree responded with a warm pulsation. In my mouth, I got the taste of a sweetish water rising through the vessels, and for a moment I myself became this water, the roots absorbing it, the shaggy leaves stretching towards the light. I even felt the vampire leaning against the trunk and pulling back the branch. Oh wow, came from above. Did they grow up? Yep, 2 of them. Rip them off and get down. Soon Leon was already sitting on the lower branch, and I took 2 warm, translucent yellow apples from his hands. The vampire took his time and jumped off. Oh, I'm afraid I overdid it. They are ripe. I noticed sadly looking at the apple through the apple at the light. And what's wrong with that? Well, he wanted the sour ones. For the lack of better. Are they edible? Of course. Why would you ask? I heard that created food is poisonous. It depends on what you create it from. For example, if you wish, you can give the appearance of an apple to horse manure, or create an illusion, tangible, juicy, but unfortunately completely useless for the stomach. You can levitate an apple from someone else's vase if there is one inside. I just accelerated their growth. So, it means you can harvest the crops every day? Dream on! If I make, say, 5 apples ripen, the rest will shrivel and fall off. From 20, the leaves will fly off, and after 40, this tree is only good for kindling. Why? Because nothing is done just like that. Do the math. There's at least a month before harvest, but I made the apple ripen in 1 minute. It demanded 1,000-fold portion of water and food from the tree. The tree can still feed 2 voracious apples, but for the sake of 20 it will have to kill all the rest. And what if it say it's slow, in a week? What, cuddle with an apple tree for a week? It won't take long to take root myself. Is it really that difficult? I thought that magic was an outlet for lazy people. Magic is one of the branches of science, the most promising so far. At the junction of heaven, of sky and land, a dark figure in a cloak with a hood appeared. It saluted us with its long scythe and disappeared behind the hill. After some time, a melodic whistle came from there, and there was a smell of freshly cut grass. "He knows, right?" I asked, wiping the apple on my pants. "Who?" "The gardener. That we are robbing his garden." "Certainly. Then what's the point?" "I wanted to entertain you a little," the vampire admitted without the slightest remorse. "You've been wandering around the fountain since the morning, like a ghost through the ruins of an old castle." "And to no avail." "You didn't find anything?" "Absolutely. Just amuse the children. Do you know what's the strangest thing? I combed the piece where we fought from end to end. Nothing. Empty. Moreover, there are paw prints, but there are no energy traces." "Energy traces?" "Yes. In addition to energy lines, there is an energy shell of the Earth. It surrounds every object and remembers its outline. If an object is moved or a new one is placed in its place, energy disturbances occur. Well, something like ripples on the water. Then the shell adapts and calms down." "Maybe it managed to calm down?" "Let's ask the question differently. Maybe someone helped it calm down?" I bit the apple with a crunch and carefully examined the damp, darkening hole. The coarse pulp turned out to be sour. "Leon, was there at least one false attack?" Didn't understand." Leon held the apple so carefully in his palms as if it were a bowl of Venetian crystal. "Well, at least once did it jump out in front of the vampire, muttered 'Sorry, my mistake,' and run away?" "No." "So it senses it from afar. Here's another thing that surprises me. I am certainly not an expert, but it seems that vampires and humans are not too different in taste. Why does it choose people? Why does a wolf choose a sick bull from a herd of thousands?" Leon leaned against the trunk, continuing to warm the apple in his palms. "Because the outcome of a fight with a healthy bull is unknown to the wolf." I suddenly grabbed my hand from my pocket and poked Leon in the forehead with a hairpin clutched in my fist. The silver tip pierced the bark all the way to the wood. The vampire's quick, evasive movement could not even be outpaced by the eyes, let alone the hand. Impressive! It seems that our uninvited guest is afraid of the Lord of the Gala. Still, I wouldn't risk meeting it in open battle. Leon glanced sideways at the hairpin, carefully pulled it out, and placed it in my outstretched palm. "It doesn't want to risk meeting the vampire too. How close do you say it let you get?" "About 600 feet. "How far does your telepathy extend?" "Well, I feel its presence in—" No. From what distance can you read minds?" 300, well, 200 feet. He hesitated. I think it has something to hide. And I'm even more sure that you know it. And not just you. Leon brought the apple to his mouth, but did not take a bite, glancing over it with an unseen gaze. Are you going to eat this fucking apple? I couldn't stand it anymore. All that was left of my apple long ago was a tail with hard films. I doubt that any of the vampires will be able to have a heart-to-heart talk with her, with it. It's too careful for that. And being driven into the corner, it is doubly dangerous. So, only one thing remains. No, he snapped. Yes, you will order all residents to stay home at night. I cannot do it. They won't listen? No, vice versa. Then what is the problem? It will appear. Yeah, without a doubt. And it will eat you. Well, it is still in question. Besides, I'll play it safe. I'll put a bag of rat poison in my pocket. If you're very lucky, you'll get rid of both me and the werewolf. The crushed apple splashed between his fingers. Don't you dare say that. Don't you dare talk me out of it. You are an idiot like the rest. Yeah, we magicians are somewhat shifty, somewhat crazy, I readily agreed. But in our field of work, they don't like cowards. If we don't get out if we couldn't get out of a case, we bring it to an end. You didn't disappoint the others, right? All the Eden magicians, having wandered around together, sooner or later realized that the only way to see the creature was to meet it one-on-one. Judging by the sad results, you did not ignore their requests. It was my mistake. They were mistaken, Don. You have nothing to do with it. Please help me. You will die, he whispered quietly, somehow doomedly. So consider this my dying request. I reached out and brushed a piece of apple off his shirt. Leon, you won't be able to dissuade me. Of course I can go back and lie that the creature left this place, but lying will not help much. The creature will finish off all the humans in the valley, no matter how you guard them, and then take on Kamniderjits and the surrounding villages. It will kill methodically and carefully. No one except the victims will notice or feel it, and humans will find the culprit next door. Actually, they have already found him, and it will be difficult to convince them without a weighty scarecrow. That's what I'm going. That's what I'm going for today. It is unlikely that your soft scarecrow will contribute to peace negotiations. I shrugged my shoulders carefully. If I'm really unlucky, I don't need music nor a cross. It will scare away the inconsolable locals of the Gala. Just don't forget to plant a low mound with ferns so that it blooms on good nights. The heartfelt speech did not move the vampire at all, rather the opposite. Okay, he said unexpectedly firmly. You will get a deserted night, an apt. But you cannot count on ferns. If the creature finishes you off, I'll leave you to the crows. Well, for the crows it is, I agreed accommodatingly. Come on, you can even eat it yourself, just wait until the morning. Leon shook his head sadly. But then don't say that I didn't warn you. Go get some sleep. There are less than 7 hours left before sunset. I really didn't like it. Well, really didn't. I managed to persuade him too easily. And this is with an initial categorical refusal. Either he wants me dead more than it seems, or he's up to something. What would I do in his place? Exactly. I would be up to something. Chapter 21. The last one for today. It got dark quickly. Let alone sleep, I couldn't even close my eyes. I don't know how Leon notified the vampires. He didn't use heralds, that's for sure, but he did it. The children were called home at sunset, and half an hour later, the bolts creaked, the latches rattled, and the mops rustled, propping the doors from the inside. It was unbearable to wait for night to fall while listening to Krina's mournful lamentations. In the light, bluish twilight, long before the real darkness, I decisively crossed the threshold and went to Leon. The meeting house greeted me unwelcomingly, with its shutters closed. A sadly familiar teenager was sitting on the porch, captivated by the targeted spitting on a beetle crawling along the path. The Lord deigns to rest from noon. There is order to not wake him up, the kid lazily informed, after which resumed the spitting. A week ago I would have believed such words, but now I'm seriously worried. What is he doing? I can't close my eyes and he's been sleeping since lunch. Maybe he's got sick. Did he eat the stale chicken giblets for lunch and get a stomachache? Enough, said Leon, throwing open the door. I can't stand giblets. Well, don't eavesdrop on my thoughts. I can't. They are very loud. Yeah, well, I was trying. I admitted honestly. I need to talk to you seriously. Come in. Slightly surprised, Leon hospitably opened the door. No, you better come with me. They might overhear us here. Who? The teenager remembered the Lord's order and ran home. Well, let's walk a little, for my encouragement. I started whining. More than ever, I need friendly support and fiery guidance. If you weren't a witch, I would have tied you up and sent you to Starman with the first merchant cart, Leon said after a long, tense silence, reluctantly descended from the porch. Too late. Invitations has been sent out to the guests. They will arrive any minute. Oddly enough, I even have a plan of action prepared. I nervously fiddled with a simple copper bracelet on my left wrist. I hadn't put on any trinkets before, but Leon, even if he noticed, didn't bother to ask why I was so happy to decorate myself. The farewell walk turned out to be a little more fun than the funeral rehearsal. Leon adhered to the tradition of either good or nothing, and stubbornly remained silent. Eventually, we reached Queen's small garden and stopped near the entrance to the cellar. The vampire broke the silence for the first time. And what's so serious and top secret did you want to talk to me about? Well, you see, the poor bracelet slipped from my hand and bouncing loudly rolled down the steps. Oh, what kind of day it is today? Everything is falling out of hands. I looked into the cellar in confusion, and impenetrable darkness flooded my thoughts. Stay here, I'll get it myself, said John with a sigh. He quickly descended, and I waited, counting my heartbeats. Leon's steps were muffled by the crunch of fine river sand, which meant the steps had been completed. During the day I explored this cellar. Nothing special, stone walls and clay floors strewn with sand for dryness, a pile of sprouted potatoes, barrels of last year's pickles, and a thick oak door with an iron bolt. I found it! I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and waved my arms away from me and up, as if releasing an invisible bird. The door clanged dully, and the bolt slid into its grooves. So simple. I slowly walked down the slippery stone steps and tiredly pressed my back against the door. My knees were buckling. What have I done? Vodka? Leon's voice was barely audible through the tightly fitted words. He still didn't understand what had happened. He was just surprised. You are caught, Lord, I said quietly. There wasn't need to raise my voice. It was enough to think, but for some reason I was afraid of the silence. I'm afraid now you won't be able to tell everyone with a clear conscience that it is impossible to deceive you. The answer was a dull hit from within. The door didn't budge. Let me out, immediately. I'm not a vampire, Lord. I don't obey you. Enough. You are too used to deciding for others and have forgotten how to respect other people's decisions. To get a person to do things your way, you have to agree with them, right? Good policy and effective. Oh, you want to watch together? Please, I'll show you myself. Whatever I want. Do you want to take a walk alone? Please go for a walk. I'll be watching from the bushes. Are you asking to clear the area of vampires? Yes, with pleasure. I'll order my subjects and sleep for an hour or two and settle down nearby, so that, God forbid, the creature jumps out. That's what you are going to do, right, Lord? Even your frankness is false, because you are frank for the sole purpose. It is easier to control a friend than an enemy. Anything can be made into a weapon, even friendship. You never lie, Leon. But how talented you are to not say everything, at not saying everything. The door shook as if someone was hitting it with a battering ram. It's no use, Leon. I enchanted it during the day, both door frame and the walls. They can withstand even a vampire. Don't even try. In the morning I will let you out, or you will get out on yourself. The spell disappears immediately after the magician's death. The door muffled almost all sounds, but it seemed to me that an angry wolf was locked in the cellar. It was such a strange howling, like groaning scream reminiscent of a half of a howl. Turning away, I walked up the steps, barely dragging my feet. Halfway up the stairs, a furious blow seemed to shake the ground, and then there was silence. What if he broke his head, lost consciousness? What? Maybe he's also allergic to potatoes. The temptation to check was so great that I went down again, stood for a while at the door listening, until I discerned a faint scratching. It seemed to me almost like a frightened wolf was scratching at the door again. No, I won't get a second chance. If Leon gets out, it is unknown who will cause my death this night. No fur, no feather, the vampire muttered unexpectedly clearly, apparently leaning against the door frame. To the Leshy, I blurted out and flew out of the basement like an arrow. It wasn't that dark. A cloudless night spread starry wings over the sleeping earth. The forest breathed mossy dampness and cold and warm steam. The forest breathed mossy dampness and cold, and warm steam rose from the cooling pavement. I soberly assessed my capabilities, both magical and physical, and gave up searching for the werewolf in the bushes. If I saw anything else in the open space near the fountain, the bushes likened me to a knight in a twisted helmet. So I sat down on the stone's edge and, to brighten up the weight, began polishing the sword with the hem of my jacket. As time went, the enemy was late. According to the rule of the dueling code, I had every right to count his defeat. In the rejected bushes, nightingales sang, alternating melodic whistles with rhythmic clicking. Cheerful bats, cheerful bats flight in victory laps over the fountain. I looked around for the crooked, sticky tree near which I had lost track of earlier. It's strange. If a werewolf jumped out of the bushes, fought with me, retreated and disappeared into the bushes again, then the tracks leading to the fountain should have dried up first. But it was the tracks leading to the bushes that dried up. I definitely remember. But at that moment I didn't really think about it. It's like the werewolf was moving backwards. Or it was the other way around. Not bushes, bushes, but fountain, bushes, fountain. It dripped onto the top of my head. I shook it. Another drop slid down the collar and down the neck. The wind has changed, I decided, turning around. Above me, a column of water from streams merging together vibrated, wriggled and bubbled. Well, like that wasn't enough yet, I muttered, stunned. For some reason I did not like this column. Without analyzing the reasons for such sudden antipathy, I prudently increased the distance separating us, jumping back a dozen feet. Just in time, the pillar bent in an arc, crossed over the edge of the pool and crawled after me, pulsating and transforming before my eyes. I saw it grew a toothy mouth, and then stood up on its gnarled paws, and brown fur broke out and fluffed up all over the body. "Hello, werewolf!" "Hello, late dinner," the creature clanked its teeth. With my back forward, I left the battlefield as quickly as possible. Although, to be honest, I had no idea how this werewolf could eat me. Even the Archmage is powerless to create real flesh from pure water. Behind the spectacular facade, the same water splashed. That's why the werewolf's movements seem so smooth and fluid. If I tried to cut off a tuft of fur from him as a souvenir, I would have to keep it in a glass. And the parka would evaporate on a fine day or freeze into ice with the onset of frost. Well, it will tear me into pieces, smear me all over the area, but at least he won't be able to eat me. That's good enough. To be honest, that was of little comfort to me. There is no smoke without fire. Someone created this creature and continues to control from close range. "You bastard scoundrel, you bitch," I scolded the unknown sorcerer, almost burying my back in the bushes. You're hiding somewhere, you vulture. What did the wounded heroes shout in such cases? "Oh, you wolf's foot, bag of grass"? No, it seems to be about horses. Oh, here it is. "Come out, unclean spirit, we will fight." Naturally, no one came out. The A riot of all kinds of greenery around the square gave my hypothetical enemy an extensive field for maneuver. He could sit in the trees, hide in bushes, lie in the grass, and generally be anywhere. The murmurs in the oak trees kept popping into my head. The combination of these folkloric elements with oak tricks caused me even greater panic than the slow but inexorable approach of the pseudo-werewolf. What do mermaids have to do with that? I couldn't understand at all. If some mermaid dragged herself here from the nearest swamp for the pleasure of sitting on the oak branch, then what does she have to do with our duel? Okay, Volga, put yourself together. Or you will have to be put together. I already knew that everything created by the magician bears their imprint. Moreover, in the cluttered bins of my memory, a recognition spell was carefully kept. But not so fast. It was as if I had been hit on the head with a dust bag. I staggered and went blind for a moment. Protection. Security spell worked. That's it, yeah, my colleague is well disguised. No wonder vampires can smell him. Wait a minute, you brat. And how would you like this gift? I put all my anger into the next spell. Without trying to penetrate the essence of the magician, I simply set a homing discharge to his address. Well, what bush would smell like burning? None of them? The werewolf howled and got enveloped in steam and melted at my feet. And then, at that moment, standing in a lukewarm puddle, I realized with breathtaking clarity what was happening. It never came from the forest. It was under my nose all the time in the center of the city. It came out of water, living water which could not harm anyone. As Leon claimed, it was neither alive nor dead. Hiding in a secluded place, the magician left their unconscious body merged with a nearby vein and moved with a nearby ley line, and moved along it like a mole through underground galleries for hundreds, maybe thousands of miles. This process required enormous amounts of energy. Without the line, the magician would not have been able to move even half a mile away from the body. The gable caught itself in a trap. Only here the line comes to the surface. Only here could an unknown sorcerer break free, drape themselves in a shell of water and kill. That's why my rod didn't waver when I walked past the fountain. The creature was not there. It came in it with darkness. Leon and everyone else were wrong. Having completed a dirty deed, the monster did not run away into the forest. It only needed to disappear from view for a short moment. And then it let go of the temporary body, water spilled and was absorbed, as it happened now. And the magician calmly turned to the fountain and went down the line. No, calmly? They couldn't live calmly. They had to crawl slowly, carefully, merging with the ground, pretending to be grass and dust, covering their thoughts, covering their tracks. Otherwise, the vampire would have discovered them with their sophisticated senses. They're still here. They couldn't leave so quickly. I took them too far from the fountain. I jumped up, and I saw a fountain 500 feet away. I probably set a world record in sprinting. At first, I was driven by the excitement of the hunt and the desire to confirm my guess. Then, chilling horror when it, having guessed my intention, rose to its full height and, no longer hiding, howled and stoned behind my back, creepy, ethereal, furious. I get it in time. Without slowing down, I jumped straight into the pool, throwing up a cloud of splashes, and while still jumping I sensed an invisible path, its guiding thread through the endlessly intricate catacombs of energy routes. And I caught it. Now they couldn't go back. They had to take a fight. This is where we finish for today. Thank you very much who visited. Thank you whoever been here with me. And good night.